The fourth Gauss-Markov assumption is really easy. We've covered three assumptions so far, and those assumptions are in order, and I'm going to show you on the screen: homoscedasticity, the second one is normally distributed residuals, and the third is independent residuals. Now, given those three, it follows that the dependent variable must be continuous. Now, some of you will say, well, why is that? Certainly we have logistic regression. We can use regression in the word, but logistic regression is different than just standard ordinary least squares regression. So we're going to put that aside for now. And all of these assumptions pertain to the ordinary least squares regression and satisfying the assumptions that we've covered so far, because the Gauss-Markov assumptions has to do with ordinary least squares. So in order to satisfy those three prior assumptions, the dependent variable must be continuous. So let's just go through each one. A continuous variable, well, first, homoscedasticity, to have an evenly distributed variance across the entire range of our prediction range, we need to have a continuous variable so that we can actually have continuity across that range. If there are discrete units, then what we're going to find is that potentially just by sampling alone, we're going to have heteroscedasticity. Second, having normally distributed residuals, if we have any instance where we have an uneven count in a discrete dependent variable. Discrete meaning, just to get everybody up to speed, discrete means that there's single values and there's no deviation from it. And Likert scales are that way. So if you have a 5-point Likert scale, you can only endorse 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, for example, and there is no 1.5. So the continuousness is required in order to have a smooth gradient, so that we have residuals that are distributed across our entire gradient. And then finally, for the third assumption of independent residuals, in order to have independence and without having any skew or some crazy problem with our residuals, there needs to be a continuity, because that continuity protects us against an underlying relationship that may exist from our measurement model or some oddity in our sampling or something like that. So given the first three Gauss-Markov assumptions, we are left with this fourth assumption that the dependent variable is continuous. And we're going to talk more at length about this assumption when we move on to logistic regression later on in the semester. So for right now, just assume that all dependent variables in ordinary least squares regression are continuous.